Well, hello and welcome to the Riverfront Reds Show, Late Night Reds Holiday Combo Show. And I am Seth Shaner. What holiday show special is not complete without a famous guest star? And
Yeah,
I am so
yes.
pleased. I am so pleased to add Chad Dotson to this. It's going to go down with the Brady Bunch Christmas special, Chad. It really is.
I hope you have someone else coming on that's actually famous. But I'm happy to be back on the show. It's been a while, and we've talked a lot about me making my return, and I've been excited to do it. So I'm glad this week worked out for us.
Well, it is great to have you and talk with you, and I certainly am looking forward to. We've got the live show going with the chat. Pat Magooch, of course, is the first guy to check in. Good old Pat. So we've got him in the chat, and the idea kind of to wrap up the year as we head toward a new year, and to talk to you a little bit about the Cincinnati Reds. I was a lot of times I'll say your Cincinnati Reds. I don't know if they're yours anymore. We're going to find out if they're still Chad's Cincinnati Reds.
Oh, they're always going to be my Reds. I picked this team when I could, barely walk, and I'm afflicted with them forever. So for better or for worse, I'm here.
Absolutely. Well, hey, there was a little bit of news this week. Nick Kroll didn't want us to have to do a show without a little bit of news. And so right after Christmas, he got busy. He added a couple of outfielders. The first news we got on December, I believe, 27th was they added J.J. Bleday for a $1.4 million contract with performance incentives. Now, first of all, Chad, I know you and I are both from Appalachia. I've never actually used a bidet, but I hear they're delightful. I know you travel the world. Have you been in a two-bathrobe hotel situation with a bidet? Have you experienced that?
Well, I don't do luxury travel usually, but yes, I have. But now I've got a problem, Seth. Every time I hear his name now, or I see it read, I had not made that connection. So now every time I hear JJ Bleday, I'm going to think about a bidet. And I'll tell you what, another guy that used to be on the show a lot, my brother Nate.
Yes.
Big fan of the bidet. Ask him about that. So
all right.
I imagine he must be a big fan of bidet as well.
Okay. Well, the second thing I wanted to note with you is the lead paragraph to Mark Sheldon's MLB.com piece on the signing of Bleday. He put this in the lead. He mentions that he lived briefly in Newport, Kentucky, like with a host family while he was playing with the Midland travel team. So, I mean, there's your ticket sales right there, right?
Yeah, that's all that matters, right? If they somehow came somewhere close to and maybe lived for a night or two somewhere near the Cincinnati area, that's a big deal to this ownership group.
Oh my goodness, we're going to see the ticket sales go up. I mean, Sheldon's just toying with us at this point, right?
Mark I think he is. I think he is.
Put that in the lead. That was wild. That's wild. And yeah, Pat Magooch says there's the reason they signed them. Absolutely. Now, as Skylar Wuebker, the usual host of Late Night Reds, and he will be back with Ben Brown in the new year, no doubt about it. As Skylar said in the Slack channel, it doesn't look all that bad because the idea is he's still under, team control until 2029. He did have the 2.1 B WAR in 2024. Classic move of buying low, hoping to gain something out of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the way I look at this acquisition is anytime you can acquire a player who has just been designated for assignment by the Athletics, man, you got to do it. You have to jump on that one. And and Nick Kroll didn't let any grass grow under his feet. He saw that happen. He's like, this is the type of guy we need. All jokes aside, it's fine. It's we've seen this type of signing many times. It doesn't always work out, but he's not a bad player. He can help in a platoon situation potentially. I don't mind having him on the roster, but temper your expectations. He literally was designated for assignment by the Athletics recently. So
was it Mo Egger on Twitter who did the AI search and looking for similar players, and they come up with all the Reds like Will Benson and all these Reds outfielders? It's like, wait a minute, isn't this the same thing?
Well, it is. It's Will Benson. It's Jake Fraley. It's Austin Hayes. I mean, it's really just let's take a fly with this guy. I hope he can rebuild some of his value, and then he'll go to a franchise that's serious about winning.
Well, they paid Hayes $5 million plus a buyout. So hey, maybe they're getting even smarter. Now later in the day, Chad, they traded a guy. And listen, the real fact of the matter is that these moves are all made so that we'll have future obscure former Reds to talk about.
Yes.
And in
Yeah.
5 years, you're going to come on the show and you're going to tell me about Ethan O'Donnell, who was the prospect the Reds traded to the Marlins for Dane Myers. So Dane Myers is now a Red also. He's who Nick Krall himself called an average to above, I assume average center fielder. He cited his 297 batting average and 360 OBP against lefties the last 3 years. So there you go.
Well, let me circle back before we get into the Myers conversation, because there's not much more I can say. He's the same type of player.
Yes.
But I made a comment that could have been construed on the Twitters about these being obscure names, and I feel bad about that, and I don't want to let this opportunity pass without just sort of tipping the cap to Ethan O'Donnell. Ethan O'Donnell, you know where he played in college? The University of Virginia Cavaliers.
Well, actually, I usually start these shows lately by kind of leading the show off with something we're going to talk about for the next hour, and that's usually facetious and all that. My idea today was to talk to you about whether Virginia would be the university to join Notre Dame in joining the Big Ten.
So. Well, I would not be surprised if Virginia isn't a different. First of all, 11-win Virginia Cavaliers won the Gator Bowl, the TaxSlayer.com Gator Bowl. Most wins in school history. But I did have to. They may join the Big Ten. Yeah, they're going somewhere. I don't think the ACC is long for this world, but at least not in the current format. But Ethan O'Donnell, respect. I wanted him to be a Red, and instead, hopefully, he'll make it to the big leagues elsewhere.
No doubt. One thing about your Virginia situation going down to the Gator Bowl, you got through that game without your coach punching an opposing player. So.
It's always a good thing. It's always a positive. Yeah.
That happened once upon a time. Do you know the same night Woody Hayes punched, is it Charlie Bauman, I believe, Ohio State basketball beat number 1 in the country Duke. And in Columbus, the game was hardly mentioned at all in the newspaper because Woody Hayes had just punched this guy. It was a wild situation.
That was still a wonderful night then, because every time Duke loses, an angel gets his wings.
All right, Jimmy Stewart. So another Krall quote about these moves. He says, we're going to try to improve the rest of the offseason. Okay, that's good. Now, here's the sentence that was very Krall-like, okay? He said, I think we want to figure out if there's a way to get better.
Yeah, have we heard that before? I mean, it's the same old sort of storyline, which is he's getting a little bit better at press conferences. I'll give him that. But it's just, well, I hope we have enough flexibility, and we're always looking to get better. That's his typical line. We're always looking to improve if we can. It's just got to make sense for us. It's nothing but I hope they do continue to try to get better, because they still have some holes that they had when the season ended. Yeah.
Yeah. Also from Krall, we've got some more money to be able to use. He says we looked at these deals as potential upside, but it also allows us to continue to make this team better.
So the question there is going to be how much money, obviously. Now, they do have enough money if they wanted to spend it. They showed showed us all that during the Kyle Schwarber, that brief flirtation, that they were willing to spend not enough to get Kyle Schwarber, but they do have some extra money. They're not going to spend that much money, obviously, and no one is suggesting they are going to actually spend that now. They're going to put that back in their pockets. But the question is, how much money do they have left? A little back of the napkin math suggests to me maybe if they're Krall's already said this offseason, they're going to be around the same area as they were last year. I think if you look at what they've got, there may be $8 million still there.
Yeah. Now, and Pat McGooch makes a good point. Skylar's making great points in the chat. Now maybe they trade a guy like Lux, they free up $4 or $5 million, and then boom, all of a sudden you can actually add one player that makes a little bit of money here or there. So I don't know.
Or deal Brian Hayes. I mean, I love watching that guy flash the leather. Best defensive third baseman I've ever seen for the Reds, with the possible exception of Willie Green, for those of you that go back as far as I do. that's $7 million on the books there, and he's the worst hitter in the league, probably bottom two. I don't know. Do they want to get creative in dealing some of these guys and a little extra money, and then actually get an impact player? They still need an impact bat. We've known this for 2 years now. They still need an impact bat. Instead, they went out. Last year at the deadline, they went out and got Ke'Bryan Hayes, who can't hit. But think about where we were at the end of the. And I am actually a little bit optimistic, and we can talk about that about next season. But think about at least 2 bats that started in the playoffs for the Reds are gone now.
Mm-hmm.
And Andujar and Hayes.
That's right.
And who have they replaced them with? Guys that cannot hit as well as Andujar and Hayes. Hayes rarely healthy, but so they have to do something else. I can't imagine they're not going to do something else, whether it's a trade with the White Sox or something. But they got to do something.
Well, and you missed kind of you weren't in on the shows quite as much last off season. We spent the whole off season between our 2 shows on this channel talking about Luis Robert, and he's crept back into the news. And I'm not going to cite a Twitter, handle that goes by the name of what was it? Bartolo Colonoscopy, I think is the guy's name. It was in the Slack channel. We had some good conversation in Slack channel today with what supposedly the White Sox are still asking for. So we're not going to cite that as necessarily gospel when it comes to trade rumors. But, does Luis Robert move the needle for you?
Well, I mean, he improves the team. I don't know that I am thrilled to go overpay for Lou Bob, as I like to call him. That's what we call him here around the Dotson house, Lou Bob. Yeah, he's fine. I mean, he's better than what they have, I guess. Yeah, and so the question becomes, what do you give up for him? And you know me, I want them to trade all the prospects, every prospect, unless they went to the University of Virginia, trade them.
Which they just trade one.
Which, and of course, they do the wrong thing there. They trade one of those. And so I would think that if you're actually willing to trade guys like Chase Petty, that you might be able to come up with a package that gets you something more attractive even.
Yeah, that's what I would think.
So they could do it if they wanted to do it, I guess. Sure. If they get Robert, I'm fine. I'm happy with that. I mean, he's better than what they have in the outfield right now. So I don't know.
One thing I wanted to ask you about, and I kind of wanted to, maybe we could pretend we're sitting by the fire and having a little chat here. For years, you served as a source of wisdom for Reds fans, and maybe even kind of like a voice of reason when we're all kind of running around with our hands up in the air screaming about this ownership and this management team. But you called a spade plenty of times too. What do we think right now? You said you're a little optimistic about next year. Where are you right now as far as you have to come to grips with what they're going to do, right? You understand they're not going to trade for Shohei, for instance. We can joke about that all we want, but they didn't go high enough to the hometown guy back in town in Schwarber. So knowing the constraints they put around themselves, and that's my opinion as well, where do you fall right now on this franchise? Because they've got the makings of obviously a great rotation, and they've got some good young players, but they could really supplement that if they wanted to.
Well, they could, but these are the Reds that we've known for how many years now? This is who they are, My hot take is that last year's season was the ideal season for Reds ownership and management. Mm-hmm. In that they didn't have to go spend a lot of money. They still were competitive. They had me, I get more irritated than anyone at this ownership group. But I'm watching those games down to the final week, and the playoffs were an embarrassment, but I like the Reds in the playoffs. They did that without the Reds ownership having to spend much money. Mm-hmm. So that is kind of, I think we all need to just understand that's kind of what the level they're going to be shooting for going forward. This is who the Reds are. Just be good enough to be interesting while being cheap. To go back to your original question, I think there are a couple of reasons that if you're looking for reasons to be optimistic, I think you can. First of all, they did just make the playoffs. Now their offense was bad, and it seems like it's probably gotten worse, but or at least not improved yet. But the pitching staff, I don't think we can overstate how good this pitching staff has a chance to be. The rotation, and I'm almost a little bullish on the bullpen as well. Maybe that's just off-season optimism, but this rotation has the potential to be the best Reds rotation since 1990. I mean, I don't know. Maybe 2012, 2010 through 2012. That was a good one as well, obviously. But it's going to depend on health with every single one of these guys because they do have health concerns. But man, you look at guys like Hunter Green and Chase Burns. I mean, it's just straight fire talent. Just great, just incredible talent. Obviously, I like Nicola Dolo. Need him to stay healthy. Brady Singer for what he was, I thought he brought exactly what they needed from him. It's a Rhett Lauder. What if you're looking for reasons to be optimistic? What are we going to get out of Rhett Lauder potentially? I mean, there are some guys here. There's more depth than they've had, and there's more high-end potential than the Reds have had in rotation in a while. That's a real reason to be excited. Now, you got to play offense as well, but it's been rare that we've been able to go into a season with a serious rotation like this. So that's the first thing I would say in terms of reasons to be optimistic.
The idea that team last year lacked the middle of the order bat, like I couldn't believe it, and it really my brain started turning when Skylar and Ben had their show, like the Monday after the Reds were out of the playoffs, and they were talking about like basically great sluggers, great hitters throughout the Reds, history going back to the Big Red Machine, and I just to me it was like, oh my goodness, you don't even have to put Joey Votto in this lineup. Put Jay Bruce in that lineup last year. And the difference is just amazing. Now, I know Ellie was banged up and playing hurt most of the year and all that. And hopefully this coming year he won't be. Hopefully he'll be healthy and be able to take those leaps we thought he would take. But my goodness, it just doesn't feel like they were that far away last year from being a much better team. And maybe you don't draw the Dodgers in the first round, right? Maybe you draw somebody you can contend with and not be kind of shell-shocked over.
Yeah, if you have a serious middle order bat, maybe you don't qualify for that last spot and you get a better playoff. I mean, they weren't a team built to win a championship either way, but if you can get into that tournament, you have a chance until you run into a buzzsaw like the Dodgers. It's that one. I like them to get about 5 more bats, but that one middle of the order power hitter really kind of changes the calculus. I've said 100 times that hope is not a strategy, and I'll continue to say that. That is often the Red strategy. And I think at this point here, last week in December 2025, that is, if they do nothing else, then they'll go into the 2026 season with that being their strategy. But I do have some hope of a full season of Noelvi Marte and a full season after another year of recovering from the shoulder surgery of Matt McClain. I don't want to give up on McClain yet.
No, not at all.
And if both those guys can be above average hitters, if they manage Ellie a little bit better so that his production is in line with his talent, and I think and part of it was on Ellie, obviously wanting to play all the time, but I mean, those are 3 guys there that could provide more production. But that still doesn't absolve them of the necessity to go out and get somebody that can mash. A Kyle Schwarber type, perhaps.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no, never mind. Sorry, that's
the novelty has definitely worn off on that one because they didn't take the final steps needed, and certainly Schwarber seemed to be dropping all the hints that that's what he wanted to do, and certainly he did meet with the team and all that. It just didn't happen. Well, hey, I want to kind of devote most of the rest of the show and see how long it takes because we did get a lot of responses. People have been clamoring for Chad Dotson to come back on since basically the end of March when you were last on. And let me tell you something. People with bigger egos than I could get pretty sad, I guess, and upset. I mean, like, hey, people, I'm doing the show now. I mean, week after week, where's Chad? And so here you are. Go ahead.
Well, let me just say this. I don't believe anyone was clamoring, number one. And number two, all it is that for so many years, it was this ridiculous accent that's just, it's soothing in someone's ears, and you kind of get used to it. And you kind of need that sort of soothing Appalachian Mountain accent.
Morgan County, Ohio is not Appalachian enough. That's what Chad's saying, because that's where I grew up, just north of Athens. All right, so with all that said, I'm going to see if I can tee you up, because I have the actual letters.
Yes.
Let's see if I can tee you up and see how it goes, okay? With that in mind, from the home office in
Kalamazoo, Michigan.
Yes, we got it. All right, actual letters from actual viewers, all the stuff people wanted to get off their chests and have Chad Dotson respond to. Continue, though, in the chat. We'll try to get to some of those comments as well if you'd like to be more live with these. But we got several here, including, and I'm going to say their names. You're going to remember most of these guys and girls and say, hey, maybe you can say hello back to them and that kind of thing. But we're going to start off with your good friend, Kyle Kapler.
Kyle!
Now, Kyle has already broken Chad's cardinal rule. Chad only allows one question, but Kyle asked two. Yeah, two. All right. He says, how many viewer mail letters are literally jammed into Chad's mailbox right now?
Countless. The mailman drops by 3 or 4 times a day, irritated because we won't clean out that mailbox, but I haven't had time to answer him yet. So,
all right. So here's his actual viewer mail question. We can both answer this. Which youngster do you have more faith in going forward? Stewart, who's now svelte, I hear, 26 pounds down. In fact, working out with Yonder Alonso, Yonder never really, seemed to me to be that trim. But do as I say, not as I do, I guess. So who do you have more faith going forward, Stewart or Marte?
Yeah, that's a tough call because Stewart has yet to perform on the big league level. Marte shows Stewart shows some flashes too, but Marte in sustained stretches. I think it's Sal Stewart though. He's the type of player, and maybe this comes back to my not lifelong, but certainly as long as the Riverfront's been around and its precursors, my obsession with one Adam Dunn. I like the hefty boys that can mash, and he may not be as hefty now, so I may have to reevaluate, but I love the idea that if Sal Stewart could stick at like second base and could mash, that really changes a lot. Even third base. So,
what do is trimming down an effort to be ready to play second base? And if it is, and if that's what the Reds are asking to do, what are we doing with Matt McLain?
Yeah, that's my first thought. Is that first of all, if you're Matt McLain, you can't feel too comfortable that second base is yours. McLain was awful last year. I do think he'll bounce back, or at least I'm optimistic about that. So I hope that in terms of Sal, my first thought was exactly what you just said. When I saw that about him trimming down, I thought, well, is he getting ready to play middle infield? I don't want him to slim down too much and lose that pop, but it'll be interesting to see how. That's one of the big questions coming into the season is how does he fit in? Because he has to fit in somewhere. His bat's just too potent.
He does, and at risk of sounding like some of the scouts at Billy Bain's table in Moneyball, he just had some of the it factor, like the way he reacted when there was a play in the playoff games against the Dodgers that he felt like he let the team down, and he wanted to take it on himself. He's in the clubhouse basically taking the blame. Here's this kid that really only played like 20-some games at the big league level, and he's putting it all on himself. I really was attracted to that.
No, that showed me something about him, but I don't want any of this to detract from or let anyone think I'm saying anything negative about Noelvi Marte. I think Marte's got a shot. I think he has a shot to be a real impact guy based on what we saw, and so I'm glad to have both those guys.
Absolutely. All right, Rex Scott, our old friend Rex Scott chimes in. Chad, many thanks for bringing us all together, reflecting on how you've assessed the state of the Reds in various stages of your fandom. How have you felt in each one of those times, and what do those myriad states of mind say about what it means to be a Reds fan?
Well, Rex and Kyle, I'm going to go. Good to hear from you again. Hopefully, we'll get a chance to do this a lot more often in the coming year. I don't. Growing up on the tail end of the Big Red Machine, I just thought the Reds are always going to be good. And then I started watching the team and following them very closely, and they pretty quickly were really bad. That was the early 80s. But then, 4 straight second place finishes, and then they have a bad year in '89, but then the World Series, and then there's off years in there, but up through '95, they were you just always felt like they had a chance to be there. There was never a time, and some of that's from the legacy of the Big Red Machine. And then probably after '99, which is brutal because that's when Ken Griffey Jr. joined us. It just became this churn of where you just knew the team wasn't going to do everything it took. They were not going to go all in. There's no period since the Y2K that they've ever gone all in. And you lose a little bit more faith every year. Until I'm at the point now where I'm like, you know what, this is kind of they are who they are. I'm stuck with them. I love watching the players play. There are a lot of players here I really like. But you just don't, if you go into it with no expectations, and it makes it easier. I don't get disappointed by the Reds anymore because I don't expect anything out of them. I used to get really disappointed and really upset when they would lose, but now when they win, I smile. I'm happy about it. When they lose, I expect it.
I think the line of demarcation for me, and granted, I was in high school at the time, was that up until 1995, and maybe Jim Bowden was just trying to pull rabbits out of hats even already at that point, but up until 95, it felt like they would do what it took to try to win. And then that's when they sold off some parts in 97, 98. They got good quicker than they thought. And then, of course, like you mentioned, the junior deal. And really the problem there is, had they gotten Schwarber, my big concern is they would have just unloaded a bunch of payroll then and kind of had it go that way. So, yes, there's definitely been, and that's the economics of baseball, or what the owners have decided they need to do to make sure they keep on making money. Our next guy is, you're going to know this guy right away, Joey Gaditza, who's from...
Oh, Canada.
That's right, Joey.
Our buddy from Canada. Joey, how you doing, buddy?
Joey wants to know what's the next step in pissing off Phil and Bob. We need to do something grand. And he said, Chad, thank you for connecting us all together here. And people, I mean, we do have some new folks, but most of the people are long time Chad Dotson / Red Leg Nation Radio / the Riverfront fans. We certainly appreciate the community you built with a few other folks, and we're trying to keep it together here, especially through the Patreon group. But Joey is asking, I guess, as you saw, there was a Bengals billboard recently, maybe even 2, although the second one felt like might have been CGI or something, or AI. Do you have any plans now that you're not tied to the Riverfront to have a single, a solo manned mission to?
It's funny. I have thought about it just to poke it at Bob and Phil a little bit, just when I saw the Bengals billboard, I thought, maybe we should give another go at that. Although you got to say it was 5 years ago, almost, and it was not particularly a successful venture. That billboard. Nothing has changed in the interim. But let me just flip back to something you said a moment ago, because I've missed this community. It was never about me. It was about this community and the people got to talk to all the time. I've missed it. All the time I'm like, I need to dip back into that Slack channel, and then something happens, and I will. I'm going to, because I really do miss all this passionate Reds fandom that has developed around this community. And so I didn't want to get out of here without saying that I really do miss this group, and I'm so thrilled, Seth, that you were able to sort of grab the torch or the baton, however you want to put it, and keep this thing going, because it's a fun group. So I don't know, billboard, do we need to do some sort of an AI video of Bob and Phil? I don't know, doing something ridiculous and try to shame them? I don't know. The sky's the limit now with AI.
The time around the billboard, but then also, Phil's, near the dugout on opening day, the things he said about where you're going to go and those sorts of things. And then, of course, his visit with the Rosie Reds the following winter. That was probably the lowest I've felt as far as just confirming that we don't have owners who want to try to do what it takes. And certainly, I think your advice after all that happened was really good too. Was like, we love the Reds, we love the players, we love the city of Cincinnati, we love the community that's built up around, even just in our little neck of, Cincinnati Reds fandom. That's the stuff, to use kind of the trope, they can't take that away from us. So
Right.
that's why we keep it going.
Well, and I think back even a little bit before that, to the trade deadline, or I guess this is after that, but the value of this community to me was confirmed. I'm getting my timeline mixed up. With the trade deadline in 2023, when the Reds did nothing, and there were huge sort of swaths of people who are who comment on the Reds, who are telling you why that was it was a smart thing to do to not trade all these prospects. And what I loved about this community is we came on here and we were just honest about it, and we were just like, come on. I mean, we don't owe anything to this team. They owe something to us, if anything else, for our lifelong allegiance and all the dollars we pour into them. We're going to tell it like it is, and that's what I've always loved about this. Is we really did. We tried not to be mean to anyone, and we tried to be classy when we could, but we also just didn't pull any punches, and you're still not pulling any punches here, and I appreciate that about this community.
And also, especially like in the Slack channel, but also just on the shows we do and all that idea of, yeah, we might get angry, yeah, we might get upset, but we're going to do it in a way that, we're not going to yell and scream at people and belittle people.
Yeah.
Right. And that's where you trudge into the Twitter waters. And a lot of times that stuff is where it's kind of toxic. Obviously, the reaction is to just call names or whatever. And we're not about that here, but that doesn't mean we're just singing Kumbaya and thank you, Phil, for everything you've done for us. So
yeah,
that's kind of where it is. Hey, James Urban.
Oh, James Urban. He's like 70 years old now, isn't he? How old is James now? Gosh, is he still with us? Is he still with us?
I never understood that, but it lives on. It lives on.
I don't remember where it came from either, to be honest with you. I don't know the origination of that. Maybe he can tell us. But
all right, you mentioned this, so put your money where your mouth is. James wants to know, what's the moment you missed not being on the pod last year, or was there one? And he says, we miss you and Nate lots. Thanks for building this community. So I know you're so busy with work and things like that, and certainly that was the reason kind of things have shifted in your life. But was there a time during the season? Did something happen on the field, or did something happen within our Reds community that you kind of thought, oh man, this is where I really wish I could jump on?
Yeah, I would probably just point to that last week or so when they clinched, and some of it was the Mets vomiting all over themselves, but just clinching a playoff and having a reason just to be happy for a little while. We know they're a flawed team. We knew they probably weren't going to go any further, but you know what? They got a shot. They're in the playoffs. And so just an opportunity to forget all the nonsense and just be happy about them. I miss not having this group to share that with and having an outlet to comment on it and talk about it and just sharing the love for a little while. So I'd say that was it.
The 2025 season was, very roller coaster-y and very kind of without the offensive punch and fireworks that come with the home runs and things like that. It was kind of a little bit of a downer. It was like not boring, but it was one of the oddest winning teams I've ever tried to watch. Like, they didn't make me turn them off in July or anything like that, but they just kind of, they trotted along and they got what they could. I guess they squeezed as much as they could out of that rock, didn't they?
They did. They were not that much fun to watch day to day. They really weren't, because it was such a slog to try to score a run or two. But but despite that, they gave us a moment that
they sure did,
that I enjoyed.
They did. All right, Rich checks in. Of the recent acquisitions, will any make any meaningful contributions, or will they turn out to be a continuation of less than memorable and unremarkable Reds? And he calls them ungreats. Boy, Rich, that's a little tough, man.
Rich, go ahead.
We just don't know. I mean, again, even Blade, I mean, could he? He was drafted in 2019. He's not that old. He had a decent year in 2024. Didn't do that well this past season. I don't know. Maybe it's hard to do well in a bandbox in Sacramento. I don't know, but he could come and do something, right? You just never know. But is it going to be Kyle Schwarber? No, I don't think it is.
No, boy, we all kind of know the answer to this one, Rich. And by the way, Rich, miss seeing you, buddy. Rich doesn't live too far away from me
Okay.
here. Actually, he's a good cat, and I hope you're doing well with everything that's been going on, Rich. Maybe, if I were going to make a bet on these off-season quote unquote acquisitions that they've made so far, are they going to pan out to be somebody that we really remember, or are they going to be obscure former Reds? Probably they're going to be obscure former Reds someday.
Yeah.
But there's enough there that you can kind of squint and say, hey, what, if this guy can stay healthy and you only hit him against lefties and he can contribute. I think there's some talent. If we're especially talking about the outfielders, I think there's some talent there. So I'm at the point in the year when I want to be optimistic. So I'm going to choose to be optimistic.
How optimistic are you about Christian Encarnacion Strand? Are we done thinking he can do much at all?
Yeah, I think I'm not giving up on him. I'm not going to designate him for assignment, but he has not shown me what I need to see at this point. So could he still? Yeah, he's still young. He's not going to be that masher in the middle of the lineup that we all, again, hope. The hope was he would develop and be the guy that we've been talking about they need to go out and get. And I don't see it happening, and that's unfortunate.
Another former Riverfront friend, Tim Daniel, checks in.
Oh, I've heard of him.
He says, tell Chad DeAndre Hunter stinks, but also he's the best and I miss him. I guess you're the best? I don't know if he's talking about DeAndre.
I don't know.
He's
Virginia.
Yeah.
DeAndre Hunter on the 2019 NCAA tournament champion, Virginia Cavaliers. Yeah, he's
18 team too.
But he was hurt and did not play against UMBC. Let's make that clear. That's why they lost. So he didn't stink back then. Tim, love you, buddy. Keep up all the great things you're doing, and be kinder to my former Cavaliers, please.
You were talking about Rich and living near you, and certainly here in Ohio, there's probably a few more Reds fans than where you live. I don't know, but although here in Columbus, you swing a dead cat and you hit a Cleveland fan everywhere you go. It's gross. My son's swim coach, like an assistant coach in his early to mid 20s, just out of college, he's just kind of hanging around the pool deck, and we start talking, and he's like, well, so what do you do? And I kind of told him about the Riverfront a little bit toward the end of my spiel, and he goes, You're Seth from the Riverfront? Yeah, he grew up in Kettering over by Dayton, and he listens. So I was like,
that's great.
That's
Isn't
awesome,
that fun?
man. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Our good friend Brandon Kamick. Brandon, thanks for checking in. He says, when are we getting a Chad Dotson movie pod? And is there a performance in the history of film greater than Adam Dunn in Dallas Buyers Club?
The second question, no. Greatest performance in the history of film.
That's two questions, though. So.
That's true. That's true. I don't know. I don't know if I've got some opinions on movies. I'm just not sure anyone wants to hear them. But I'm still watching a lot of movies. That's the one thing that I do try to give myself. Although I'm not as many as in prior years because of the job that sort of made me give up a lot of this stuff. But I will say this. Let me drop this morsel. I may have served my tour of duty here, and I'll say I'm looking for some opportunities, perhaps in the Cincinnati area, to get back out there. And so, who knows what happens if that happens. So,
tell me this about cinema. Where is cinema now? I know you still go watch current new movies and things like that. I just, I've got younger kids, and also it just doesn't seem to me. Is cinema as good now as it was 20 years ago, 30 years ago?
It's better than it was 20 years ago.
Okay.
It's not as good as it was in the 90s. The 80s stunk. The 70s were great. It's not as good as then, but it's starting to come back because we have finally come out of, and I'm going to make some people mad when I say this, but I'm sorry. We're starting to come out of this era where everything was a comic book movie. Mm-hmm. And so, I've seen 3 movies this year that were incredible, 4 maybe, that were incredible movies that were not based on any prior intellectual property. and all of them amazing. Sinners, One Battle After Another, Weapons, and then the one I saw, my son and my wife, we went on Christmas Day to see Marty Supreme. Just fabulous movies. So I think there are good movies out there if you want to go find them. I think that I'm hopefully moving in a better direction. But I like going to the theater. That's the way movies are meant to be seen.
Mm-hmm.
I don't go as often as I'd like, obviously, so I watch more at home here when I can. But I think we're in a good place with cinema.
All right, good. Every year around this time, maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, somebody got you sucked into talking about James Bond films, and I've seen all the Bond films, and I often look at your list and think, oh, I need to rewatch some of these and see where I believe. I think I agree with your top couple there, but your short sleeves are calling you out here, as Pat.
Uh-oh. No, Pat, no.
He wants to keep himself.
Maybe.
There you go. Well, Dwight Kelly checks in. I mentioned Dwight. Dwight's a great supporter of ours. He says something that's kind of already been discussed a little bit. He says, Chad, I'm thinking of one word, billboard.
There you go, Dwight. I know Dwight will be the first one on the train when we decide to do that again. He'll be with
He would. Yeah, he would. All right. Andrew Williams asked a question that we may be able to talk to for the next 10 minutes, maybe longer. In what form will Joey Votto make his next public appearance?
Oh, wow. I think Joey Votto will show up as a one of these like the Shaq or Charles Barkley of MLB. I think on postseason broadcast, things like that. I don't know that I don't see him doing broadcasting every day and getting back into it.
Mm-hmm.
But he is thoughtful enough, he's smart enough that so they should throw all the money at him because he would enhance any of those broadcasts. So that's where I would guess. He's living his best life right now, traveling the world and just doing whatever he wants to do. And I look at a guy like that who was so focused, just singularly focused for his entire career. And he was handsomely paid for that. And so now he gets to go and just do what he wants to do. So we may never see him back is where I'm going with that. We may never see him back, but I think we probably will on one of these broadcasts. That's my guess.
I'd like your opinion on this. Do you think I think you're right. I think if he's focused on something, that's what he's going to just focus on. And I think once he was done with baseball, his focus was on traveling and really enjoying himself and kind of throwing himself into that. Do you think it's that, or were there hard feelings to the point where the reason why he didn't have like a Joey Votto day this past year? Because when he retired, you thought, man, they might be able to set something up and have him come back to the city and things like that. And he didn't make any public appearances in Cincinnati since, technically, 2023. So I don't know. What do you think? Do you think it's a Reds thing, or is it a Joey thing, or is it both?
Well, it's both in that I'll say this, and I don't want to divulge more than I should, but I do not see him coming back with any role with the Reds while the current administration is in charge, while the Castellinis and the ownership group and the management group right now are in charge. I think they treated him pretty poorly. We could all see that at the end, and that's where I'll leave it.
Okay.
He's not coming back to the Reds. I'd be very surprised if he came back to the Reds anytime soon.
So he won't be taking a seat next to John Sadek.
No, but man, that would be fantastic, wouldn't it?
Wouldn't it be?
My goodness, love that.
Pat has another question for you here. Chad, did you see the new SpongeBob movie?
No. No. That one, that's not my generation. I did go see the Minecraft movie. I didn't go. Really? I saw it here at home. I pulled it up and watched it. I did not understand a single thing about it.
Do you know what I did to avoid seeing the Minecraft movie? And I have a 10-year-old. He's in my dining room right now. He got a laptop for Christmas, and he's been on Minecraft basically ever since. Here's what I did to avoid going to the Minecraft movie. My preacher's daughter is 17 years old. And I said, I will pay for your ticket and buy you popcorn and drink and candy if you go take my son to the Minecraft movie. Done and done.
I'd say after having watched it myself, that was a good investment.
There you go. There you go. No, that's just not, that is definitely not my thing. And SpongeBob is, I'm the same as you. It came along, and my kids are both into Pokemon, and I'm just probably 5 years too old for that. Like it wasn't there. So I don't understand what they're talking about. The other day, I took them to the local card shop, and they went one way, and I went the other way. Pokemon to the left, baseball and football to the right, and we were all happy. So
that's the way it works. Every generation. Although I'll say our local card shop here, I go in there sometimes, and there's a lot of kids in there, ton, way more than you'd expect, and most of them are Pokemon, but a lot are ripping packs of baseball and basketball cards too. So that's good to see.
We just got a local one here in the town I live in, and it's made such a difference because all the other ones around the whole city of Columbus is more like you just walk in and tell them what you want and they give it to you and you leave. Like this place has tables, it has kind of meet and greet type opportunities. They even did like a Pokemon like dress up night for Halloween, and kids could come trade and stuff like that. So that's been really cool, and I'm looking forward to kind of continuing that kind of relationship.
Yeah, it's fun.
Dwight Kelly checks in. Good evening, gentlemen. Good to see you again, Chad. Good to hear from Dwight. Okay, Chad. So as we look forward, let's get a little thought on how much more you think these Reds will do. We discussed earlier the possibility of, X amount of dollars, maybe $5 million, maybe if they make a few moves, maybe you get up to $8 to $10 million for this year's payroll. What do you think happens between now and spring training?
So we're going to see a slew of minor league signings with invitations to spring training, because that's what we do every year. I don't know. I guess the rational side of me says they've never done anything. They've never really made any big splashes, and with Nick Krall at the helm and with the Castellanos. Why would they now? But it's such an obvious move to try to get another hitter, and Krall's hinted towards it. I don't know if it's Robert. I don't know if it's somebody else. I really believe there's probably a trade that's going to happen. And again, this is like 55-45 in terms of what I believe, but I think there's a real possibility, and it could, and it's more than likely could be a name that we haven't even thought of yet.
Sure.
And so I want to believe that, so that's what I'm going to say.
Like Ketel Marte was almost too much in it. It's like, that's okay, whatever. But yeah,
I would have loved to have had Ketel Marte though. I mean, I like that guy, but
sure. So I was thinking about this the other day. My brother-in-law is a University of Dayton alum, and he brought up the fact that the Obi Toppin-led 2020 Dayton Flyers were poised to make a huge run. They would have been the number one seed, I think, and of course the tournament gets canceled out from under them. And I was thinking about them, and then I was thinking a little bit about the Reds, and it's like, could you have a sliding doors moment where COVID doesn't happen, and some of those investments, the Castellanos and who knows what else, and they had the pitching staff at the time, do they get rewarded for going ahead and extending? Because let's be honest, going into 2020, they did extend quite a bit with their signings and things like that. Like, if they rewarded the ownership with a big run and attendance kind of soared and things like that, and then all of a sudden you get Ellie to come up in 23, and then, oh my goodness, you're adding Ellie to a team that's really already good. How much time do we dwell on that? Like, what's the possibilities that was that always going to be a one-time thing for the Castellanos to dive in and spend some money there, or could things have gone differently had there not been a 2020 shortened season? Well,
it's a great way to look at it, and I think that you've hit on something. I think that sliding doors is the right way to describe it. That could have been. I firmly believe that was the last moment. That was the moment when the Castellanos said, "We're not doing this again." We're that they didn't go all in. Let's not pretend they went all in, but they did invest a good bit. The payroll back then was way more than it is now.
Yep.
And then they got hit by the COVID year, and I think they've just going to ride this thing out, doing it the way they do it. They're not ever going to go get out over their skis in terms of money again. So, but if that had worked out, if it hadn't turned out the way it did, it could have absolutely changed everything that happened, because it could have shown them what we've been trying to tell them. If you'll spend some money and put a real product on the field, we will come.
Right.
And we showed it in 2023 when the young kids came up and they had that great summer before they traded for no one at the trade deadline. And it really could have, it's sort of it's an interesting thought experiment, because I think about it. It's a team that's before I started following the Reds, because I was too young really, but I've read a ton about it, wrote a chapter in our book about it. The 1981 Reds. So the 1981 Reds had the best record in baseball, but it was a strike that year. They had two, half seasons, and so they finished second place in the first half, second place, didn't make the playoffs. Best record in baseball, didn't even make the playoffs. What if that had been a real year and they had made the playoffs and perhaps even gone on to go to the World Series, which they could have. It was just had to win one series. All of a sudden, it changes the way we think about the Big Red Machine, because then the Big Red Machine extends out to 81 potentially if they could win that year. And it also changes the way the franchise looks at the next 3 or 4 years, instead of just scrapping the whole project and getting rid of everyone. Maybe it's different. So that's the 2020 thought is something really I need to explore a little bit more in my own thinking, because that could have been our last best hope, and something out of our control.
Yeah, I mean, it was a 60-game season, and honestly, that 60 games was very reminiscent of the 2025 season as a whole. Like the slog that it took to just get in 2020, and that was an expanded playoff that was really wonky, and they go down to Atlanta and can't score any runs. Trevor Bauer shoves and does great and all that, and 2 games, pitched well enough to win both, didn't win either. You just wonder over 162. Sonny Gray pitched well. Like all these guys. I mean, they had some guys. So, and who knows how good Shogo would have been? Would that tree have fallen on his wife? I don't know these things. That was bad. I don't think I think Moustakas was done probably. Right. I mean, I think that was a bad signing. So from that standpoint on that end, but Castellanos, he seemed like in a funk all of 2020. And he could have opted out, but he didn't because he wouldn't have made the money. And he had a great 2021. So I'm amazed, and I always wonder about it. And I guess I'm going to go ahead and show this one. This Josh Beckley says 25 had the best attendance since 15. I don't remember that number exactly, but I did see that it was quite a boost in attendance in 2025. You could be disheartened, I suppose, if you find out the day after the season when Nick Krall says we're not upping payroll at all, or a month after, whenever he said that, when you said, hey man, more people came, more people tuned in. Now, obviously the TV network situation's back in flux again. So that is an issue, and the other thing, Chad, we're not going to we're not going to back up the owners on most of these things. I understand that. I'm not apt to either, but if Hal Steinbrenner is complaining about the 2020 circumstance for his Yankees still this past month or two ago, the ripple effect of that season is still being felt, even if I don't really like the idea that these owners don't take the spend money to make money thing seriously in Cincinnati. But
you're not wrong. You're not wrong at all. But it's just, we keep saying, if you will put a product on the field that's competitive, that's a compelling team. I used to say all the time, I used to write and talk about the lost generation of Reds fans. And I've completely changed my mind on that. I don't think there's a lost generation of Reds fans. I think there's a generation that is going to go do something else if the Reds are just like the Reds have been, but can be activated when the team is good. We saw it in 2023, and we saw it, in 2025, when they really were tough to watch from home stretches, but they were in the race. And so fans showed up more than they had in the decade prior. It's so obvious that that's the case. If you want us to show up, I mean, I'm not going to because I'm still boycotting the Castellanis. But fans will show up, and it's so obvious. All you have to do is just give us a product to root for, and we'll be there. And they just, it's not worth it to spend the money to put a team out there that we can support. That value proposition, more attendance is not enough to make it worth them taking that risk. And maybe 2020 is part of the reason why they're so risk averse.
You know, that 2023 season, to your point on the lost generation or losing a generation possibly, I had a son at the time, had been nothing but into the Reds up until that point. And 2023 comes along, and by the end of April, he was checked out. And I told him, I said, hey, they just called up Matt McLean. I think you ought to, watch this guy a little bit. He seems exciting. And then my son was 12 and a half at the time. And then a few weeks later, Ellie comes. And he's been back ever since. And again, you've got to fill in. It's like the 2016 Cubs. You've got to cultivate those young guys by filling in around them with the established guys. Ben Brown has joined the chat.
Hey, Ben.
Ben, certainly great to have you here, buddy. Holding this seat for you for a week. Enjoy the holiday off here, as we don't have a ton of Reds news, so certainly these outfielders we have to talk about. I told Skylar and Ben, Chad, you'll be back next week, and we're going to have real news to report. I can just feel it. But we'll see.
Fingers crossed.
Hey, Chad, I really appreciate you taking the time tonight. You've got an open invite, and, even if I don't ask you in a given week, if you tell me enough ahead of time, you're welcome to come on. And I really appreciate it. And no matter what happens going forward, you being more a part of the Cincinnati Reds fan base and the folks talking about it is definitely a better place to be. So thanks so much for being here tonight.
Well, Seth, you've been very kind to me tonight, and I appreciate that. Yeah, I do. I miss this community. I think it's a great community. It's deepened my appreciation for what it means to be a Reds fan. We're all kind of misery loves company, I guess, but it does when Thursday rolls around and I'm not getting ready to get on a podcast. It's something out of my life that I do miss, and so depending on what happens with me going forward in terms of professionally, and I may be in a better place where I can get on more often, because I love it. I do love, even when they're bad, I love talking about them and laughing about them and making jokes and having a good time, because to me that's been for most of the time that I was on this show, just being able to get together and laugh through the mostly misery. It made it more fun for me, and so I think that's sort of a big part of why the Riverfront's a special place. So thanks for asking me back on.
Well, a little peek behind the curtain. I think the one time you maybe had an open evening, and by open I mean you just didn't have to work that evening, it happened to be your wedding anniversary, and so you had to decline, and understandably so. So hopefully we can have you on more in the future, and certainly we can talk about our Cincinnati Reds and really enjoy that. Everybody, there will be no show later this week with New Year's and all that, and hopefully I'll be celebrating my Ohio State Buckeyes victory over Miami, or if they lose, I'll be crying throughout the day on Thursday and Friday. So keep on the Patreon site. Go ahead and become a member if you aren't already. Patreon.com/RiverfrontCincy. Our Slack channel, we certainly welcome any and all people who want to join that conversation. It's awesome in there. We have a lot of, I'd like to say, more sophisticated. It's not always more sophisticated, but at least we're not screaming at each other. So there's that. So Chad Dotson, thanks so much for the time again. Happy New Year to you, and Happy New Year to everybody that makes up the Riverfront. Thanks so much for being here.